Hello, my name is Rhianna, and recently I've read some books that won the Man Booker Prize, and so today I thought I would talk a bit about them. So I really like literary prizes because there are a lot of books that I've found over the years through looking at the long lists and the short lists of various literary prizes, and I've read some winners of the Man Booker Prize over the years, but there are still quite a few winners of the Man Booker Prize that I haven't read, and so recently I thought I would choose 3 books that have won the Man Booker Prize before and read them and see what I thought of them. So the first one I picked is Prophet Song because this won the Man Booker Prize in 2023, and so it's the most recent winner of the Man Booker Prize, and that was the first one I picked. Then I picked Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro because I hadn't read this before, and this won the Man Booker Prize in 1989. And I also chose Shuggie, Bain by Douglas Stuart, which won the Man Booker Prize in 2020, and yeah. And I think what is great about literary fiction, literary prizes, is that sometimes literary fiction books don't have like such a big hook and a big logline compared to genre fiction, because literary fiction can often not have like such a big plot, and it can sometimes be more meditative and focus on like the small parts of existence. And that's why I really like literary fiction, because there are a lot of books that kind of don't have big plots that I found over the years from the prizes. For example, A Sense of an Ending by Julia Barnes is one of my favourite books, and I think it doesn't, there's not like a large plot that this book has, and I found it because it was a Man Booker Prize winner, and if it weren't for that prize I maybe wouldn't have ever found that book or read that book. So yeah, I think they're great. So the first book I want to talk about is Prophet Song by Lynch, and I loved this book. This maybe is my favourite book of the year so far. I think it very much deserved to win the Man Booker Prize, and it's just such a well-written story and was so emotionally affecting. So this story is about a woman named Irish, and she lives in Ireland, and she is a mother to 4 children, and she has a husband, and she lives this normal life in Ireland. And at the beginning of the novel her life is fairly normal, but as the novel progresses, the state of Ireland slowly falls further and further into a totalitarian state, and we watch as Irish's life goes from normal to just completely changed by the change in the political landscape. And I loved how we saw the story just through her eyes. You really get to see what her life is like, and you kind of watch in horror as her life slowly changes because of everything that's going on politically. And if you look at the first chapter and look at the last chapter, it's just horrifying really how much her life is destroyed by this totalitarian scheme. And I think the last 100 pages of this book are like a punch to the stomach. I couldn't really look away from the pages. I was just so engrossed in the story, and there's this such horrifying sequence where Irish is trying to look for her 13-year-old son who's gone missing, and it's just one of the most stressful scenes that I've read in a book. I really felt like I was with Irish in those moments and felt her stress and her panic. And I think because it's very easy to put yourself in the position of Irish, the book allows you to really see just how awful it is to have your life completely displaced because your country fails you. And I think this novel naturally has been compared a bit to something like 1984 by George Orwell, which also explores totalitarian states, but I found this book quite different to that, because in George Orwell's novel you start in the world of 1984. The first line is "The clock strike 13, the world has already changed." But in this novel you see the world go from the one we know into this world that is completely different, or at least for Ireland it's completely different. So you really see like the steps that can occur for a totalitarian state to come into existence. And yeah, I think this is a really fantastic book, and I would definitely recommend this one. The next book is Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro, and I love Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. I was really looking forward to reading this one, and I very much enjoyed this one. This one is quite different to Prophet Song in that this one, there's not such a great plot. It's very like meditative. The character is really like thinking back on his life, and as a consequence we spend a lot of time like in his brain going through like his memories and his thoughts now that he's older and looking back on his life. And if I were to say kind of what the book is, it's about a man called Stephen, and he worked for his whole life really as a butler at Darlington Hall, and he is now older and decides to go on like a trip across the West Country, and as he does so he is thinking back on his time at Darlington Hall. And an aspect of this book I really like is that he's going through the West Country, which is where I grew up, and near the end of the novel he ends up in Weymouth, which is very close to where I grew up, and I know Weymouth very well, and so I find it just very satisfying when a character is in like a place I know really well in a book, because it's almost like you in the book kind of have a moment where you're like, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. We see each other, we understand each other. And Stephen's a really interesting character. He's quite stoic and struggles to show his emotions. He gets confused by American banter, and he is very pensive in this book. And I think for me the main question in the novel is there any point in looking back? And I think Stephen asks himself, like, should I have spent my whole life at Darlington Hall? Should I have spent a life in subservience because he was a butler at Darlington Hall? And through looking back on his life, he asks himself these questions. And I think in turn, it also makes you kind of ask the same questions about your life. And it's one of those books that I think I will enjoy reading more and more as I get older, because I think the theme of regret becomes more ever present in your life as you get older. Or not necessarily the theme of regret, but the theme of nostalgia, I suppose. Because as you get older, there are more and more things that have happened in your past that you become more distant from, and that you maybe feel like you want to look back on. And yeah, I think this novel is written in a really beautiful way. The prose is so nice, and there's so many good vocabulary in it. And I think if you are quite a thoughtful person and like to reminisce, this book would probably be something you enjoy. Then I read Shuggie, Bain, which is about a young boy and his mother in Glasgow in the 1980s. And this book had such a good writing style. Really, I loved the way it was written, and I knew that from the first chapter. We have so many great lines just from the first chapter alone. The first line the novel begins with is, "The day was flat. That morning, his mind had abandoned him and left his body wandering down below," which just immediately sets the tone and the vibe of the novel. I love that opening. And other lines are, "No day ever started well with 6 dozen raw chickens, and today of all days it was stealing the sweetness out of his daydreams." Amazing. "And the morning light was the colour of too milky tea. It snuck into the bedsit like a sly ghost, crossing the carpet and itching slowly up his bare legs." And the beauty of the prose really was a stark contrast to the content of the novel. It was really quite a gritty read. Like, I think the tone of the novel, if it were a colour, is very much grey. And I read this book a lot on the balcony in the sunshine, and it felt like such a contrast. It felt like this book should be read in a grey landscape, just so it would fit the vibe of the novel more. Like, sitting in the sunshine and reading this book almost felt like eating chocolate and concrete. The two things did not combine. They were opposite sides of the spectrum. And you may ask the question, why read a book that is so grey? And I suppose that is a question for a whole essay, because a lot of books are very depressing, and why do we read such sad literature? And I suppose it's because you can see yourself in it. We all have moments of greyness, and we all have moments of difficulty, or lives of difficulty. I mean, all of life, even in the moments of joy, can be hard. And through reading literature, you see how everyone has difficult moments, and some like a lot worse than you. And I also think exercising empathy is really important, and novels like this are an exercise in empathy, and they allow you to see the world from other people's shoes. And I think that is part of the beauty of being human, in that you can see what life is like for other people, because we are kind of all the same, and we are all existing together. What one person does affects someone else, and it's all like a symphony. And this isn't really about the book anymore. These are my thoughts about life, but I think that's also what the beauty of literature is. You read a book and it just makes your thoughts go off in all sorts of directions, and that's part of the reason I love literature. Although I would say, if you're feeling like you wouldn't be able to read something really sad, maybe save this for a later time. Because after reading this, I started playing Animal Crossing again, which I haven't played since 2020, because I just wanted like to feel like just to do something that was just complete joy and that didn't have any sadness linked to it. So that is a warning if you go into this book. Yeah. And so overall, I think all of these books fantastic, which was to be expected, I suppose, because they won the Man Booker Prize. I don't think there is a prize winner that I've read that I have been like, why did this win? And so let me know if there is a book you read that won a prize and that you just did not like and did not understand why it won that prize, because I think it's quite interesting how two people can have such polar opposite opinions on a book. And thank you very much for watching this, and it was very fun giving my thoughts, and I'll see you in another video soon. Bye bye.